continental calendar of Nas on March 4, 1424, the flames of the Great Stallion War are burning on the continent of Nas. The continent is engulfed in flames, numerous lives have turned to ashes, and there is no being that can stop the Demon King's army. Only despair exists in that place. To everyone's surprise, a warrior who stands against the army suddenly appears. Looking at the screen of his monitor while playing, our protagonist explains that this was more or less the premise of the game Paradiso. This game was a virtual reality RPG where the player fights against the demon army as a warrior to become a king who can protect his territory. After returning from work, our protagonist spent all his free time playing. Being an older person, the young man was simply an expert in mastering all the knowledge about the nature of characters and things related to the game. The man explains that he never lost the title of the #1 blog in Paradiso Information for 10 years but became so ill that he could no longer continue with it. Even worse, due to his illness, the young man ended up dying from overwork and playing too much. While thinking that he died at 30 years old without even having the chance to go on a date, the boy wakes up startled next to a girl with bluish hair. The girl, looking at her chubby lord, asks if he had a nightmare. For some reason, the lord seems desperate, looking in all directions trying to understand what was happening. The man asks who the girl was and, apologizing, inquires where he was. However, the girl does not understand her lord's question, and a sense of doubt settles throughout the house. Our protagonist, Jared, was checking his statistics, and the young man realizes he had an abnormal condition of high obesity, and looking in the mirror, is shocked. The boy also notices that due to his condition, his lifespan had decreased by 20 years, and with these statistics, the body he was in must be of the lowest class. Sitting in an armchair, the boy says that for now, he would try to calm down and think better about the situation. Looking into the mirror, he thinks that his name was Shin Taepong, but that was in his past life because he died and reincarnated as a young obese lord named Jared. The boy thinks he was sure he reincarnated in Paradiso Online because he could see the game's user interface, so that meant this was his reality. Jared goes into complete despair because even this time his life would also end soon because in 10 years the Great Stallion War will happen, and most importantly, in 5 years there will be severe drought and famine, and various natural disasters will occur. Sweating, the boy thinks that when the Great War of Mass erupts, all nations and territories will be forced to participate in the war, and being a terrible lord, he will die. Irritated, the boy questions how insignificant this character is because even he, Shintai, the encyclopedia of this game, did not know him. However, from fidgeting angrily in his armchair, the young man, due to his large and immense weight, breaks it, collapsing to the floor. On the ground, the boy states that when he looked at Jared's memories, he realized that the boy grew up as a slightly effeminate young man. But getting up, he thinks that there was still hope and he just needed to lose a little weight because this time, he had the memory of his past life. And this is an advantage only he had, so he could use this advantage like a bug. Already standing, Jared thinks that this was the overwhelming advantage of knowledge and he could have a better future than anyone else if he used it correctly. Jared thinks that since it's like this, he would become the strongest warrior who will become a great king after unifying the world, and that was his goal in this life. After some time, we see the same girl as before with a duster, cleaning the dust from some books, saying she would clean well so her lord could use the office. Suddenly, a huge noise can be heard from the office, and the woman, upon realizing it, sees her lord violently opening the door and calling her name. The girl, promptly wanting to help, responds to him, but the man starts searching the entire place for something, and Hayes asks what he was looking for. The boy explains that it was the memento his father had left him before he died, and irritated with the former owner of the body who put something so important anywhere, Hayes goes to the desk, opens the drawer, and takes out an artifact, saying that this was what her lord was looking for. He kindly approaches the girl, taking the artifact from her hand and thanking her. Hayes is extremely happy to help her master, asking if the young man needed anything else from her. However, the only thing the young boy asks is for her to leave the place. For some reason, Hayes becomes suspicious, stating that she could sense something different about her lord. This different thing was that he was now full of energy, and the maid becomes extremely excited about it. Leaving the place, the girl starts talking about how she will also get excited just like her lord. Picking up a necklace, the boy explains that this is the inheritance from his father, Viscount Barrett, and also a useful artifact that could help him in magical growth. Staring at the artifact, the boy thinks that now he will destroy it and thus begins to use magic on the object, causing it to crack. He thinks that this is the only way for a miserable young man like him to have the 4th magical class, and so the necklace begins to float and continues to break apart. However, he compliments that he would not be able to invoke it with the little mana he had, and thus the object finally shatters. And now the service of the artifact is the only way for him to obtain this benefit, and a black sphere begins to emerge in its place. The boy thinks he is doing this to be able to evolve quickly, and hopes his father forgives him while his hair begins to blow from the strong energy in the place. The wave of black mass starts to turn into a whirlwind, and a beast begins to come out of that mass and expand. After taking shape, the monster questions who the foolish human was that had summoned it, and Jared thinks that it was a being that could only be known once in a lifetime. Isabella, the cheerful spirit, and the girl starts to laugh in the direction of our protagonist, revealing her entire demonic and strange appearance. She questions the foolish human what the desire was that made him summon her, and Jared thinks that Isabella will be his first step on the path to success. Jared begins to try to calm down to avoid panicking because Isabella does not like cowards, and that woman likes adventurers. He also thinks that if the woman leaves, he will have no other chance to become powerful in this life. The man then, convinced of his thoughts, affirms with all of his words that he wants to obtain the mind's eye. Isabella starts laughing, saying that the man was very greedy, and asks if the boy wanted to see what was inside other people's heads. Jared confirms while beginning to think that the mind's eye is a hidden ability possessed by only one person in the entire Paradiso territory. He explains that the mind's eye is a skill that can be used to scan the statistics of other players as well as their character, and the ability improves based on level. Our protagonist, who summoned Isabella, is planning to use this ability for territory management and seeking future possibilities, and Isabella agrees, but in return, the demon questions what was the most precious thing Jared had to offer in return, and that the boy should think about it now because everything has a price. Suddenly, a contract forms in front of our protagonist, and taking it, Isabella says she would give the mind's eye to the boy but would take the most precious thing from him. She explains that if it is money, she will take it all. If it is honor, he will become a slave, and if it is family, she will eat them. The boy realizes that Isabella read his mind, discovering what his most precious possession was while stating that this was the curse of the evil spirit he had heard so much about. Suddenly, for some reason, the boy smiles and Isabella panics, questioning herself about what was happening with her lips as they were pouting. Smiling, Jared says he was thinking of something he considers extremely valuable to himself but not relevant enough to affect him, being a useless treasure. He also states that it was difficult to keep this thought in his mind, but he managed to make an effort. The most precious thing he possesses is the first kiss of Shin Taepon, a 34-year-old man who died single, and hearing this, Isabella begins to think she did not want that. The demon tries to flee, asking what kind of lunatic thinks their most precious thing is their first kiss, but the contract was already sealed and a force begins to pull her. Opening his hands, the boy thinks it is incredible to think that he will give his first kiss to an evil spirit, and even against her will, Isabella will have to comply. Even trying to appear unwilling, the boy asks for God to bless that country, and thus the eternal contract with Isabella began that day. In the mansion's corridors, two maids were discussing because they found the way their lord was acting strange, as he had been locked away until recently. He was a person who found life very difficult and boring because he had such a repetitive daily routine and only seemed happy when he was eating. Then Hayes can be seen running. One of the maids questions why the lord was in the basement since no one ever visited there, but Hayes rushes past them, asking them to move out of the way. With a stack of papers in her hands, the girl keeps running, and one of the girls asks if she needs help, but she says no, she can handle it on her own. The light-haired maid says that Hayes is very delicate and doesn't even mind always being mistreated, and they both feel sorry for the young girl. Hayes finally arrives in the room with the books and papers, telling her lord that she had brought the documents about his territory and vassals. For some reason, Jared asks the girl to stop right where she is. Starting to analyze her statistics, he realizes her loyalty is rated as S, and most importantly, the young girl has many special tendencies. Using his new ability, the boy thinks that for a maid, she had amazing qualities and would definitely make her a healer. Jared also sees that the young girl has an unrequited love and has been in love with someone for more than 10 years but laments not being able to fulfill it as he will be busy. Our protagonist starts looking at all the papers and studying the information about the territory. Suddenly, Hayes, who seemed to be restless about something, apologizes to the boy, and the boy does not understand why she was saying that. Hayes explains that every time her lord needs her, she should do her job correctly, but if he was analyzing the papers, she had done something wrong. Jared, looking at the girl, begins to recall the memories of the former owner of the body who used to hit the girl when she didn't do the job correctly. Thinking about this, the boy curses the former owner of the body because he was very arrogant and handed most of his work to Hayes, and if anything went wrong, he took it out on her. In his mind, the boy states that although it wasn't him who did this, he would make amends, and Jared starts to approach the girl, calling her name. Our protagonist raises his hand, and the girl prepares herself as if she knew she would get slapped. However, surprisingly, Jared hugs the girl, apologizing for everything he had done. The boy apologizes for all the mistakes he made with the girl, saying that it must have been hard for her and thanks her for not complaining and staying with him despite everything. Our protagonist also says that she will never have to see his pathetic side again because he has had a complete change of heart. Smiling kindly, Jared asks if the girl could trust him once more to become a good lord, and Hayes remains silent. The girl suddenly says that she feels very sorry for Jared while continuing in his embrace. Hayes explains that she is apologizing because she felt so moved that she couldn't stop crying, continuing to be shy. Desperate, the young girl says she will stay by the boy's side forever, and the boy thanks her for forgiving him and trusting him. Shin-ta thinks that now he was Jared, so he had to bear all the sins his former self committed. After some time, a huge table with several chairs set up can be seen. Hayes is looking at Jared, stating that it wasn't right no matter how much she thought about it. The girl says that the boy will faint if he only eats herbs and vegetables like that, and the boy continues to eat only plants. Our protagonist thinks that for a pig like him, he needed to do this if he wanted to lose some weight. The young man explains that in the game Paradiso, these vegetables had an effect to trick his satiety level. But even knowing this vegetable diet tastes so horrible that no one would willingly eat them, and all the food there seems spoiled. The system appears informing about some benefits the boy was receiving for eating vegetables and healthy foods. And Jared says that incredibly, he could feel the fat in his belly slowly disappearing. But even with all this, it was still very difficult, and he wanted to vomit and trying to hold his mouth with his own hands to avoid spitting out the food. Hayes asks the boy to eat it, placing a beautiful steak on the table, and the girl explains that she prepared this vegan steak as a precaution. The maid explains that she learned to make it because it is good for a healthy diet, but before her lord never ate it, so it was always thrown away, but now it would be different. Crying with happiness, Jared once again curses his former self, questioning how the boy could have mistreated an angel like that girl. While savoring the steak, the boy felt like an angel, thinking that the food was delicious, and this was expected from an A-level cook. Our protagonist begins to think that he would start soon. He then states that after reading the document, he discovered that the territory of Cribia is located in the northern part of the kingdom. This is a poor territory classified with a cold climate that makes cultivation impossible, but pests, monsters, and bandits are rampant everywhere. The boy also states that one good point is that due to the poor location of this place, great events and missions can be easily found there. Jared finishes eating while also commenting that the problem was that he was too weak to extract benefits at this moment. Determined, the boy stands up, banging on the table, and says that for now, he needed to rebirth himself. However, the demon Isabella suddenly appears, ordering the boy to return the mind's eye immediately, and the boy is startled. The piglet questions why the demon was still there, and Isabella asks how a foolish human dared to deceive her. The demon says she will keep bothering the boy forever until she recovers her power, while the boy just accepts, saying it won't be easy. 10 years ago, in a memory, a person can be seen knocking on the door, calling his lord and asking him to open the door immediately. A man with black hair and a scar on his eye says it is a tragedy that the previous lord has passed away. However, the soldier suggests to the boy that he should overcome the past and start thinking about the future. The man also says that they would fight together in this difficult moment and keeps knocking insistently on the door. However, young Jerry continues sitting on the floor, resting his hands on his knees while crying. Sad about the whole situation, the boy remains in his place without moving, just crying and lamenting his father's death. Back to our protagonist's mansion in the present time, someone is saying that suddenly the Lord had called them. A man who is missing an eye and has red hair is drinking and questioning if the Lord was preparing a New Year's party. The man continues to drink his beverage and, looking to the side, notices two maids there. The drunk goes up to the two, saying good morning to Hayes and grabbing both girls in his arms. Hayes says good morning to Graskus, but is uncomfortable with the whole situation, and the man says he likes the girl's positive side. The drunk can only think that he couldn't understand what such a beauty wanted with the fat lord, but surely he would have her. The same man we saw in the flashback is arguing with Graskus, asking what he was doing there since he had already told the boy not to hit on the women. Hayes calls the man Lakis, and he says that a lord's knight should not behave inappropriately, and for some reason, Graskus is surprised to see the man. Changing his expression to anger, Graskus asks if Lakis really thinks he has the right to lecture the chief of Cribia's public security. He also says that it seemed the man still didn't know his place even after being defeated by the lord, and Lakis gets extremely irritated hearing that, going up to the boy. The soldier faces the drunk, challenging him to say that again, but the boy just mocks, calling him an old man. However, an unknown elderly man appears, ordering the two to stop because the lord would arrive soon. Lakis, turning around, calls the old man Oren while showing respect, but unlike him, Graskus leaves angrily, saying he couldn't believe a toothless dog and a retired old man could still step inside the lord's mansion, and they were both disgraces. Seeing the man leave, Lakis questions how an arrogant brat like him became a security chief, but Oren says that the two of them couldn't do anything about it. They head to the meeting place, and a long table with several people seated can be seen. Some of the nobles who were talking find it strange, stating that they can't believe the lord had called a meeting. They are also impressed that Jared was reading the reports they had just delivered, something the man never did. Graskus continues drinking and then slams the bottle on the table, questioning why his lord was reading a report since it didn't suit him. Graskus tells his lord that the young man should end this meeting now and drink with him because the boy brought a rare liquor and bets his lord would love it. For some reason, upon hearing this, Jared becomes interested, gripping the papers tighter and repeating the word liquor. Graskus continues offering the drink, and Lakis just observes, thinking that this scoundrel seduces the lord every time the meeting happens so that the lord ends up fooling around. The determined swordsman stands up and declares that he will stop Graskus regardless of the consequences, all for the glory of Cribia. However, Jared, with a completely serious expression, questions if the red-haired man is crazy and asks how he dares to come to a meeting while drunk. Neither Lakis nor Graskus understand the lord's question. And the man starts laughing, asking his lord not to be sulky because they hadn't drunk together in a long time. But suddenly, a spell called Magic Missile is activated and a beam of bluish energy breaks the liquor bottle Graskis was holding. The drunk is in shock just watching his alcohol spill on the floor, and Jared says that this time he will turn a blind eye to the man's degrading act. Irritated, Graskis says that it didn't matter if the Lord was his superior, he wouldn't forgive someone who used magic against him. However, Jared just ignores him, throwing some papers on the table and saying they would move on to the next topic. Calling Graskis by name, Jared asks if the chief of public security is satisfied with the wealth he has accumulated by abusing his authority. Now standing, the drunk is completely confused, and Jared continues, saying that he had harmed many inhabitants of the territory because he was blinded by greed. The Lord adds that the citizens could not trust the government of Cribia because various abuses and crimes were being committed against innocents. Finally, our protagonist concludes that he also heard Graskis has been taking the Lord's subordinates without permission, and thus Jared invokes a fire spell. The Lord states that for all the other sins the drunk has committed, he will continue attacking the man even after burning Graskis' face completely. Desperate, the man tries to flee the place by running, but immediately a fireball is launched against his back, hitting him squarely. Graskis can only fall to the ground, unconscious and defeated, and Jared says that he really wanted to kill the man, but to uphold the law, he will stop there. Our protagonist tells everyone there that on that day, Graskis will be removed from his position as Chief of Public Security, and the Lord will be thoroughly investigating all the corruption that has been happening in that territory. All the other people at the table immediately kneel, apologizing to their master and stating that they have sinned gravely. Lakis just observes the situation, thinking that our protagonist had defeated Graskis, who was very strong in battle and it was defeated with just one strike. Looking at the Lord, he also adds that this dignity is the same as the previous Lord, Viscount Barrett. Our protagonist calls Lakis, saying he would announce the man as the new chief of security for Cribia, and the man is confused. But before he could refuse, Jared asks if he would disobey an order from the Lord, and Lakis just kneels, saying he would comply promptly. The blonde boy also says that this is an order from the Lord and asks if anyone in the room has anything against it, and everyone responds no. Jared thinks that with this, he has managed to restore the Lord's dignity, which had fallen to the bottom after Jared had done all this. And looking at everyone's statistics, he says the problem is he hasn't found someone he could use as his right and left hand. But looking to the side, he turns his attention to Mr. Owen, and the old man smiles back. However, before making a decision, Jared thinks he should take it easy because he had the mind's eye to guide him. After a month in a house, someone is desperately shouting that someone couldn't do something. A poor peasant says he won't be able to work anymore if that person takes his money, begging the man to forgive him. But the bandit tells the poor peasant to shut up because that's why he should have paid the street tax when it was charged, and he should just stay quiet. One of the bandit groups says they haven't seen Mr. Graskis collecting taxes lately, questioning if he just went on vacation somewhere. The man also tells the white-haired bandit not to spend that money even if Graskis hasn't come to collect it. Suddenly, a knocking sound at the door, as if someone was calling, echoes through the place, and the bandit chief asks one of his subordinates to go see what it was. A bald man goes to the door, opening it slightly and asking who it was. There in front was our protagonist saying hello. The bald man calls the boy a piglet, but before he realizes it, a punch quickly hits his jaw, sending some teeth flying. After the punch, the bandit is thrown across the house, and all the others in the group are shocked by the sudden situation. Lakis is extremely irritated, questioning how a bandit like that could insult his lord, asking if the boy wanted to die. Jared tries to calm the situation, saying that he didn't mind the insult, and it was okay. However, these are the people who are collecting illegal taxes from citizens and merchants. Returning to his serious expression, the Lord orders Lakis to capture all the bandits and not let any of them escape. With an extremely satisfied expression, the soldier cracks his knuckles, saying he will obey his Lord's orders with great pleasure. He states that this will be swift justice carried out by the new chief of security, and the bandits, hearing that, are incredulous, realizing that Graskis had been defeated. After teaching the bandits a lesson, in the back of the place where they were, the bandit chief is seen sneaking out with a bag of belongings. However, behind him, our protagonist opens the door, questioning where the man thought he was going, and the man is startled, throwing the bag into the air. Abandoning all the money, the bandit tries to escape by running through the snow, but Jared quickly uses his magic missile ability, striking him several times. After the whole situation, a group of citizens thanks the Lord and Lakis for their services. A group of soldiers takes the chained bandits to prison, and the citizens are relieved as they were wondering when these scoundrels would be punished. Lakis starts his speech informing all the people of Cribia that the Lord admitted his previous mistakes and declared that he would take care of the citizens with all of his strength from now on. He also says that getting rid of those criminals was just the first step, and the bandit chief thinks he couldn't believe Graskis was caught. Lakis continues his speech, and thus we see the peasants receiving food as an apology and mercy from the Lord. Even a bard was singing at the place, cheering everyone up, and Lakis concludes his speech by asking everyone to be grateful to the Lord for their whole lives. After that, Jared and his companion are riding through the city on horseback, being greeted with applause from the citizens. After returning to the mansion back in the council meeting room, it is explained that the citizens began to see the territory and the Lord in a positive light. Lacaz adds that the people who supported the Lord started to appear, so if his plan had been a success, and Jared says that their efforts are paying off. Our protagonist asks if Lacaz is doing well in his new position and with his subordinates, and the man promptly responds that he is. He thanks, saying that he was fine and happy that his lord had appointed him to this position. The boy responds that if his soldier was satisfied, he was too, because he believed the man could supervise public order well from now on. The meeting begins, and it is explained that a month after the territory's criminals were punished, public order and sentiment improved visibly. Jared explains that Lacaz recruited and assigned many skilled soldiers, all unified under his name as the feudal lord of Cribia. And all of this happened because he has the mind's eye, and we return to the present moment where our protagonist is still being pestered by Isabella, who is still insisting. Sir Elrond says that the crops are growing thanks to the new farming method, but half of the year is winter, and due to other factors, the results are not favorable yet. Avila, another vassal, says that although they are trying to use mana stones as a special product of that territory, it will take some time to achieve the desired result. Jared is thinking, hearing all this, that the mind's eye is not very useful beyond identifying talented people, and he will have to work even harder from that day on. The boy taps his stomach lightly while Lacaz observes this and says he has seen it a few times because this method seemed very effective. Our protagonist says that this is a popular method to lose weight and that he learned it in another territory. The chief of security proudly says that as his lord loses weight, he increasingly looks like a feudal lord. However, our protagonist is thinking that honestly, this method is not for dieting and is a trick to unfairly increase his own mana capacity. He explains that after emitting mana in each of his hands, you release it back near your body and reabsorb it. And this is the trick to increasing your mana. Although it's not an official bug of Paradiso, it still counts as one, and after doing this for a month, it shows results as if he had leveled up 12 times. Looking at a spell in his hand, Jared also thinks that with this, he could use 4th class magic 1 or 2 more times. However, a young soldier starts running towards Jared, explaining that there was a message for the Lord. The desperate soldier explains that the search party his lord had sent found a bandit camp inside the coal mine. Additionally, they found slaves inside, which catches our protagonist's attention and angers him. Memories from a year ago surface and 2 swords clashing against each other can be seen. 2 men, one with red hair and the other with white hair, are dueling with swords and shields. From a distance, a person with a feminine appearance is watching the fight, excited about what they are seeing. The young girl thinks that those 2 are very skilled with their swords. Then 2 other people approach her, questioning if she had been watching for too long and saying that she would get in trouble if she continued like that. But surprisingly, the girl smiles, calling the 2 her brother and sister, and they say she would be reprimanded by the director if caught wandering around. Lifting a barrel, Lena says it's okay because she's faster than her friends and extremely strong. Talking with her siblings while a beautiful butterfly lands on the barrel, Lena's sister says she can't believe the girl is already 14 years old. The one asks if the young girl will really work as a maid in the noble's mansion, and Lena responds affirmatively. Lena says she bets it will be a good place because the director takes special care of her even though she's an orphan. The girl's sister says it's a pity because she was thinking of bringing the girl to her mercenary troop, and the girl remains silent. Again, she calls her siblings, who find her attitude strange and just ask what she wanted. Shy, the girl responds that maybe not now, but wonders if a girl like her could become a great swordswoman if she works hard. The girl states she would prefer to be a swordswoman rather than a maid, but that's not possible currently. The blue-haired boy starts laughing, asking Lena if she knew why there aren't many women in mercenary troops, drawing his sword. Upon drawing the weapon, a huge gust of wind is expelled from the object, lifting dust all around. Seriously, he explains that it's because the world is too dangerous to face with such a simple mindset. He also informs her that most girls will give up or die after facing such a harsh reality. However, this applies to men as well, and the boy starts removing his gloves. The young man explains that gender doesn't matter. What you need is spirit, will, talent, and effort. He also tells her that she is more talented than the 2 of them, and that's why she would succeed. The girl's sister then tells Lena that if she has nowhere to go, she should come to them because she would hire her using her authority as a leader. The girl is extremely happy, smiling, embarrassed, imagining her bright future. But life is tough, and in another place in the future, we see the same smiling girl sitting in a dark basement, calling her brother and sister's names while chained. The girl is in complete despair, and all she can do is scream very loudly. In Lena's memories, we see the pastor calling her name while holding the hands of 2 children. The kind man says that the girl was an angel sent by God, and that's why he asks her to work hard for their orphanage, and smiling, the girl says she would. Back in the present where she is being enslaved, a bandit with a scary face asks if she knew that it was the director who sold her. Irritated, Lena retorts that it was impossible because he was about to make her a maid in a noble's house. All the bandits in the place start laughing while drinking, and one of them says she wasn't a maid but a slave, calling the girl an idiot. One of the bandits has a whip in hand, saying it doesn't matter if the girl is a slave or an orphan. However, she had to be obedient because now she was a slave, and so the man started whipping the girl's back, and she only groaned in pain. She continued trying to deny the facts, affirming to herself that the director wasn't that kind of person. Back in the cell with other children, the girl said that it had been a month since she was sold to the slave traders, and most of the time was spent locked in the cell. A red-haired girl looked at Lena and asked if she was from Mallorca. The girl added that if she was from that place, she was destined to be a slave from the beginning, and Lena asked what she was talking about. The girl explained that most orphans in Mallorca are sold as slaves, and the lord of that place ordered it. The orphanage director was also on their side, so the girl should just give up. However, Lena got angry, saying she didn't want to give up and would escape from that place no matter what happened. The red-haired girl called Lena a fool, and the blonde asked if the girl didn't want to leave that place. Surprisingly, the girl replied that she never thought about it, introducing herself as Mani and saying that the two of them would get along well in that hell until they died. Lena felt a bit uncomfortable hearing that, mentioning that Manny's way of speaking was very discouraging, and the girl replied that she was just accepting reality. The blonde explained that another month had passed and Manny, and she became close quickly. Seeing one of the cells, Lena explained that there weren't many young slaves in that place, and the other slaves acted like lifeless dolls. The girl thought that no matter what condition these slaves were in, they were still sold easily. She also thought that she didn't know if she was lucky or not, but slaves aged 14 like her and Manny were safe until they were 15, and she affirmed in her mind that she wouldn't give up. Half a year had passed, and now Lena was accustomed to the severe manual labor. Caribbean became a terrible territory just like Mallorca. The girl explained that Manny taught her a lot about the world, and we see the two side by side, with Manny informing her about what happened to Caribbean. Lena said that when she asked Manny how she knew all this, the girl always replied that she had heard it from one of the bandits because she had good hearing. Stirring a pot of food, Manny also said that there weren't many mercenaries in Caribbean, so Lena's siblings wouldn't be there, and the girl thanked her for the information. Looking at her chains, the girl continued with a determined look, thinking that she wouldn't give up no matter what happened. Knowing that the food was meant for the bandits, Manny spat in it and then told Lena that she was the most stubborn slave she had ever met. For some reason, the young girl felt embarrassed and, averting her gaze, said that she even liked that about her. Winter arrived and snow covered the entrance to the mining place where Manny and Lena were. Looking at her friend who was lying down extremely ill, the girl said that a year had already passed, and now they were both 15 years old. The only thing the red-haired girl could do was cough and sweat from the high fever she was experiencing, and Lena called her name. The blonde thought that her friend was burning up and it would be a problem if she didn't get better, so she needed to do something. One of the bandits was drinking with his feet up on the table, saying that the arrogant Grasses always boasted that the bandits only needed to trust him but was caught by a piglet. And because of that, the bandit couldn't sell the slaves and had to hide in that damned underground cave. Suddenly, Lena started calling his name, stating that her friend had a fever, and asking the man to let her have a bowl of hot soup. The girl knelt, stating that she would no longer resist and would do whatever the bandit wanted in exchange for just a bowl of soup. The man found this extremely interesting, so after a short period of time, Manny was seen staring at a bowl of soup. Lena kept insisting that her friend eat it before it got cold, and that it would make her feel better. The bandit came up behind her, putting his hand on the girl's shoulder. The bandit said that Manny should eat alone and that Lena should remember she would do everything he asked. Manny was desperate seeing what her friend had done, but when she looked at the blonde girl, she saw that she was saying it was okay. The bandit grabbed Lena's face, starting to provoke her and saying that the sick brat should rest quietly. However, before he realized it, a bowl of hot soup flew into his face, and as it hit him, the man revolted, yelling that it was burning. Taking advantage of the situation, Manny quickly grabbed her friend's arm, urging them to hurry and escape from that place. The red-haired girl scolded her friend, stating that she couldn't have done that just to get a bowl of soup. Manny also insisted that she didn't care if the other slaves did such things, but her friend should never do it because she said she wasn't a slave. The girl was about to continue her speech, but before they realized it, they were caught by the bandit. The man pulled Lena, and just as he was about to attack her, her friend stepped in, taking the blow instead. The only thing visible was Manny falling to the ground with blood flying. Lena, furious at the sight, quickly turned and punched the bandit, forcing him to let go of her. The girl knelt by her friend, who was slipping away from this world, and started to cry incessantly. Lena called her friend an idiot, asking why she had been stabbed in her place. Manny said that her life was like a pit. She grew up among bandits and was used to seeing people being robbed and murdered. But a mere orphan like her friend had such a big dream, and at first she thought it was ridiculous. However, now in her final moments, she admitted that she envied her friend, and that was why she would protect her at all costs. With her strength fading, Manny, as her farewell, asked her friend never to give up and to go to a better place next. Lena said she still hadn't given up. No matter what happened, she would get out of that hell, and didn't notice the bandit behind her was getting up, ready to attack her. The blonde girl affirmed that even if it meant she had to kill everyone there, she would be looking at the bandit with extreme hatred in her heart. The man got irritated, seeing that a mere slave had the courage to look at him with that face, and questioned how she dared to do that. He then said that his face had been burned by Lena's friend, and for that, he would eliminate the girl immediately. However, beside him, a voice questioned if that small wound on his eye could be called a burn, and the bandit was startled, looking to the side. Seeing what it was, the only thing the man could perceive was a huge and powerful flame coming towards him. Our protagonist was extremely irritated, looking at that kind of person and saying that now that seemed like a burn. In the midst of the snow, Lakaz was telling Jared that he couldn't believe the bandits really used the Alami underground mine as a hideout and wondered how the Lord knew. The boy said that since Graskus, who took care of them, was gone, the bandits must be trying to convince themselves that the incompetent Lord would let their foolish acts go unpunished. And there was no better place to hide than an underground mine, and Lakaz, who was putting on his helmet, said that his Lord had a very good intuition. However, Jared replied that the man overestimated him, and looking back, the Lord told all the soldiers to listen to his command. The boy began a speech stating that they were there to end the infamous bandits who had kidnapped their people to sell them as slaves. And for that reason, they would rescue all the kidnapped victims and show the bandits what true justice was, punishing them all without remorse. Looking into the eyes of all the soldiers, he asked them to kill those criminals without leaving a trace. Thus, the boy wielded his sword, ordering all his soldiers to go into battle for the glory of Kribia, and so the army ran into the place. Inside the coal mine, an attack began against the bandits, who started to panic, calling for everyone to gather there. One of them said they needed to warn their leader, Shed, immediately, but he was quickly struck by a sword in his back. With a bloodthirsty look, Lakaz said that no bandit would escape from that place because he would defeat all the enemies. Then, with extreme ease and all his skill, the chief of security attacked 3 bandits, knocking them out. A war spread throughout the place, with various warriors and bandits clashing. Deeper into the mine, our protagonist led a troop accompanied by Lakaz, commenting that maybe it was normal for a mine, but there were many bifurcations. Jared said that the ability of their enemy was only that of an armed commoner, and he ordered all his soldiers to spread out and search every tunnel. This was a bit earlier, and now we return to the exact moment when the bandit attacking Lena had been burned by the flames of our furious protagonist. As he walked towards Lena, the boy thought that although he had often seen slave traders in the game, seeing them in person now was repulsive. The Lord knelt beside the small girl and asked if she was alright and what had happened. The girl said she was, but her friend had died while trying to save her, and Lena became even sadder, which further fueled Jared's fury. Looking at Manny's body, he thought it was too late, and even if he used his strongest recovery magic, he couldn't save the girl. The chubby boy hugged Lena, apologizing for arriving too late to save both of them. As Jared looked at Lena, he noticed that she had a very thin body and rough hands like tree bark, indicating that she had suffered greatly from hard labor. The bandit chief, Ched, arrived at the scene and demanded to know what the hell was going on, questioning Jared. Ched, seeing the Lord, realized he wasn't someone important, just the piggy Lord, and showed signs of being extremely drunk. The bandit told his Lord that he should have continued fattening up in his mansion, also questioning what the boy was doing in his workplace. Jared, infuriated, said that it seemed the bandit's life was a mess because Ched was mocking his Lord, and therefore he would kill him personally. Ched got angry, saying he wouldn't die at the hands of a piggy like him, and started to conjure magic to counter his enemies. The two mages then faced off, and the bandit quickly launched his lightning magic at our protagonist. With an extraordinary speed, Jared easily dodged it using a magic called acceleration. The drunken bandit panicked, questioning how a mage like him could use that magic so efficiently. But before he could see, our protagonist began running around him, creating a whirlwind of dust that prevented Ched from reading his movements. Ched thought that spell worked by accelerating the body, but was easily broken because it was hard to control, making it difficult for Jared to change direction. In that case, he just needed to destroy everything around at once, so he began to conjure strong electricity magic in his hands. However, before he realized it, he was struck by a blow to his chin, followed by several attacks that made the villain contort like a ragdoll. After finishing his spell, Jared complained, stating that using such a powerful spell in a drunken state as the bandit had left him defenseless. Seeing the man fall to the ground, he told him he was so weak that his anger had already passed, so he asked the man to just disappear from this world, killing him. After completing the mission, the Lord gained loyalty points and the golden age of the territory of Kribia was approaching. Jared thought that with Ched's death, the mine's problem was resolved. All those involved, such as the kidnappers and murderers, were executed to prevent them from further tainting the land with their dirty hands. The main thing was that the captured slaves were escorted back to their loved ones by a soldier from the Republic's order. Inside a carriage, Lena questioned the Lord if he really wanted her to go to his territory. Jared explained that if the girl returned to Malurka, he feared she would be sold again by the orphanage director, so it was the best thing to do. He said he was looking for talented young people to work with him and would be grateful if the girl came to the territory of Kribia. Jared also guaranteed that the young girl would be trained to become a great swordswoman, and Lena became extremely happy, thanking her Lord. Raising her hands in excitement, she says she would definitely become a swordswoman who could meet Jared's expectations, and the boy smiled, saying that was good. For some reason, the boy stayed silent for a while, thinking about something and affirmed in his mind that he didn't expect to find Lena Jizzle Ellis right there. Lena was supposed to be the vanguard of the Demon King's army in the Great War of Stallion. Even when players attacked her, the girl only smiled while standing firm, living up to her title as the strongest tank. Lena, the living fortress, led the final defense line in the Demon King's army, and any fortress she protected was impossible to break through, regardless of the effort. Healing the girl, he thought that was the best thing to do, as it would prevent Lena from falling into the hands of the Demon King and turning to the dark side. The boy affirmed that he would prepare the young girl for the approaching Great War and make her a rising star in his territory, not the Demon King's. However, the most problematic issue was his neighbor Mallorca, because that lord allowed the illegal trade of slaves and other crimes, so his territory could be affected by those actions. Elsewhere in Mallorca, someone was asking in a mansion where the hell that Idiot had spent the money. A bald man, speaking imposingly, said he had been hearing many stories praising Cribia lately, and he was getting annoyed by that mosquito's buzzing. A man was next to him, smoking a cigar, and the Lord of Mallorca asked Frua what he thought, since he was a friend of Graskus. Smiling, the man with black and white hair, Frua, said with full confidence that he would avenge his friend with his own hands and would personally clean up that place. On a starry night, the moonlight illuminated several houses in the territory of Cribia. The territory's guards were patrolling the city, unaware that above them, someone was jumping from house to house, seemingly up to something malicious. The hooded person stopped in front of a specific house, carrying a sack with something inside. Quickly, in a narrow corridor, he threw the sack with an unknown object and then just watched. The man had light hair and a mask covering his mouth as he just observed the sack landing in the desired spot. The next morning, our protagonist was seen extremely sweaty and tired, running for some reason. Next to him, Lena had a determined look, also running with a resolute expression. Their trainer said it was the last lap, and while Lena was running easily, Jared seemed much more exhausted. Jared, almost fainting, asked if Lena enjoyed running every morning like that, and the girl replied that she did because it was always cold in the mine. The Lord approached her, saying they would continue training their endurance, and he would soon choose a teacher for the girl, who thanked him. Back at his mansion, the Lord was eating his herb meal when he suddenly received news that a letter had arrived from Oren and Avila. The one delivering the letter was Hayes, stating it had arrived that morning. Jared, reading and analyzing the information, said that everything seemed to be going well, and Lena, hearing this, said she also wanted to know what was written. The boy then explained that, in short, it seemed Oren had managed to cultivate a plant called latrila, allowing them to produce some of their own food. Meanwhile, Avila was attracting monster hunters to their territory and had already started selling the mana stones he received from them. Lena said her friend used to say that Cribia was falling into ruin, but now that she was there, she thought the place was amazing. Jared replied that they had just started to improve, and soon the whole continent would know about Cribia. Surprising the boy, Lacus arrived at his side, calling his attention to something. The chubby boy asked what the problem was, and the soldier informed him that there was an urgent report. The two walked to another location, and Jared asked if it had been found that morning, and Lacus replied yes, and it had also been found in other places. Jared, irritated, wondered who the hell would throw a monster into his territory, staring at the body of a dead beast. Lacus said he was deeply ashamed because he should have paid more attention to public order and taken care of it. The Lord walked up to the corpse, saying it wasn't the young man's fault because, fortunately, no citizens died, and since they had no walls, they were vulnerable to invaders. Jared thought that since the level of satisfaction of his citizens was first-rate, he was sure the culprit was an intruder, but wondered what the bandit would gain by doing this. Behind them, a little girl's voice could be heard calling for someone, asking the young man to help her mother, and Lakis and Jared turned their attention. The girl said that if the person wanted to sell her for money, that was fine, but she just wanted the young man to save her mother. The vendor said that no matter what the little girl offered, he didn't have the medicine she needed, asking her to stop bothering him. However, the girl did not give up. Jared approached them and asked the girl her name, catching the attention of the merchant as well. In the city center, everyone revered the Lord, and Jared asked the girl if she could tell him what medicinal herb she was looking for. In tears, the girl said her name was Mia, and that her mother had Renella's disease. Hearing this, Jared was extremely shocked, as if he knew something, and the girl explained that to help her mother get better, she needed to find an herb, but the vendor refused to sell it. The vendor then knelt, apologizing and saying he was innocent because Renella's disease was almost impossible to cure, and he couldn't do anything about it. Jared stated that he knew because this disease could only be cured by the blessing of a pontiff or a very powerful potion from the Empire of Athema. The boy thought that this disease was similar to tuberculosis, and its name came from the place where it originated, the territory of Renella, where there were many dungeons and monsters. The Lord knelt down to Mia, asking her to please show him where her mother was. Smiling, the boy said with full confidence that he knew how to treat the disease Mia's mother had. Soon after, they could see a dilapidated and already destroyed house, with Mia saying that was her residence. As they climbed the stairs, the little girl said her mother was on the second floor, and our protagonist thought that the house was old and wondered if the stairs would hold his weight. After quickly climbing up, Mia ran to the room where her mother was and called for her incessantly. The girl went to the woman asking if she was okay and saying she brought someone who could help, but the woman wasn't happy because Mia had done this before. The sick and worn-out woman told the doctor that she couldn't pay for the treatment and apologized for what her daughter had done. Looking at the woman, Jared realized she had only 7 months of life left and was truly nearing death. He then said that no payment was needed and just asked the woman to trust him. Mia, smiling, said that the man wasn't a doctor but the lord of the city, and she told her mother that the Lord had come to save her. Mary, for some reason, said that she hadn't seen her Lord in a long time, and Jared asked if the woman knew him. The woman, coughing up blood, said yes because the Lord had invited her to work as the head chef at the mansion 8 years ago. The man covered his face in embarrassment, saying that at that time he was still very immature and apologized if he had caused her any harm back then. Jared approached the woman lying on the bed, and she asked him not to come close because he could also get infected with the disease. Mary then asked Mia to bring a wet towel for her, and the girl promptly left while Jared watched her go. The young man then went to a window, opening it and observing the body of a beast, asking if the woman used to deal with monsters. The woman replied that he was right because she used to work as a chef in a high-ranking expedition team that dealt with the sale of corpses. Jared explained that people who are frequently exposed to monster corpses easily contract the disease, but the symptoms only become visible when the disease worsens. He said that Mary was originally fine, but her condition worsened because of the monster corpse found near her house, and the woman asked who would do that. Then Lena and Hayes arrived, stating that they had brought all the medicinal herbs the boy had requested, and Jared said that he had already told her to just trust him since he wouldn't leave Mary's side until her condition improved. Crying and emotional, the woman said she didn't know how to repay this debt. However, the Lord replied that they would think about it after she was cured, and quickly, the process to make the potion began. On the roof of that house, the same man who had previously left the corpse nearby was watching everything, saying that the Lord wouldn't create a cure for that disease. However, behind him, Lacus appeared, drawing his sword and saying that he disagreed because his Lord had never failed before. He also said that just as the Lord had predicted, the culprit had returned to the scene of the crime and the man looked back. Lacus, furious, asked if this was the culprit who had thrown monster corpses all over the territory. However, the bandit, laughing with a murderous look, asked why the young man was curious about it when he should already know the answer. Inside the house, our protagonist was mentioning some flower names while sitting in front of Hayes preparing the potion. Hayes said that those 3 herbs were easy to find and didn't believe they could treat the incurable Romella's disease with just that. Using some scientific equipment, they continued boiling the plants to make the cure for Mia's mother. Jared thought that when he played Paradiso for the first time, he came across a post on the homepage about the composition formula to cure Romella's disease. Thanks to that, he could make the cure that was supposed to be released to people only 10 years later, and he would do it now. The sick woman called her Lord's name, and the boy said she could say whatever she wanted. Mary asked why a high-ranking noble like him was working so hard to take care of a commoner. Our protagonist said that someone who has gone through this pain knows well what it feels like to keep their head held high. The woman was incredulous, questioning the boy if he had been infected with Ronella's disease before. But remembering his past life, Jared said no and that he grew up healthy thanks to the love his family gave him. The boy took Mary's hand and then said that his mother didn't just give love, and unfortunately, something happened. It was all true. His family was poor, and his mother couldn't go to the hospital for a detailed examination. When they finally got to the hospital, his mother had already lost the use of her hands and was in the final stage of cancer. He felt more anger than sadness because he didn't have the power to fix the situation before it was too late. Even though all of this happened 15 years ago, Jared said he could still blame himself, remembering his mother hospitalized on a stretcher in his past life. But Lord began shaking the vial with the potion and said he was there because he understood how Mia felt. He also said he didn't want the girl to feel the pain he went through and wouldn't let her lose her own mother. Up on the rooftops, Lacus was chasing the bandit, aiming to capture him. The soldier quickly tried to strike the unknown man, who easily defended himself with his sword. The man then used his small dagger to deflect the soldier's sword and quickly tried to cut his neck. However, as a servant of his lord, Lacus easily dodged the attack from his opponent, surviving the assault. With his enormous sword, he began pushing the bandit back, trying to corner him. The unknown man realized that the soldier was trying to restrain him with brute force. So he aimed at his weak point, managing to dodge an attack from Lacus that almost split him in half. The thief then said he would finish it now, rushing at Lacus and quickly hitting him with a kick. Surprisingly, even with the impact of the blow, Lacus only stepped to the side, still standing. After the kick, the bandit realized that his strike hadn't even scratched the man, and he didn't even need to dodge. Lacus then questioned if that was all the bandit had. The soldier quickly made a downward strike with his sword, questioning how the bandit dared to go against Cribia with such lamentable lack of skill. The bandit barely managed to defend himself with his small dagger, but was thrown upward afterward. In the air, he looked at the soldier, stating that he was stronger than he thought and that the people who hired him hadn't informed him that the chief of the guard was so powerful. Looking at his opponent who was on the roof, the unknown man questioned how that soldier had suddenly become so strong. It was explained that the reason Lacus was so good in an individual battle was because he could control the killing power thanks to his special inclination. Morality and justice. Lakis could surpass his limits and enhance his physical abilities whenever he fought against bad people. The bandit then landed, and it was concluded that a person identified as a villain would never be able to win against Lakis. The soldier stepped forward, telling the unknown man to surrender quietly because he would never be able to win this fight. After hearing that, the unknown man said it was a surprise because he had planned to kill the chief of the guard if discovered, but he had given up on that. He then said he would leave for now, but the soldier got angry, asking if the thief thought you would just escape like that. However, the bandit, laughing with a murderous look, asked Lakis not to be so impatient as they would meet again soon, and he started to lower his mask. He concluded by saying they could fight to their fullest another time, and a strange mist began to emanate from his mouth. The chief of security got irritated, questioning where the mist came from and trying to defend himself with his arms. But as he looked around, he realized that the bandit had disappeared without him even noticing. 2 days later, Mia was seen kneeling and observing something, and Jared asked her to look. Our protagonist began to explain that what she was seeing was done by gathering mana associatively, which was a simpler method as various small energy spheres began to unite. With his other hand, he performed another spell, explaining that this was done by forcibly gathering mana using the forced condensation method. Mia, curious, asked if both could be used for magic, then wouldn't it be better to practice just one method? Jared, dressed in strange clothing, affirmed that everyone thought that way. Dressed as a wizard, he said that however, evil magicians often corrupt the surrounding mana, and if that happens, a magician who uses the associative method won't be able to use their magic. Mia was alarmed, saying that a magician not being able to use their magic was indeed extremely terrible and concerning. Jared concluded his explanation, saying that therefore, even though it was more difficult, everyone also needed to train the forced condensation method. The girl says she understood but questioned why her lord was dressed in strange clothes and had a funny mustache. Taking off the costume, the boy said he was trying to look like a magic trainer using that. Behind a door, Mary's voice could be heard apologizing and saying that it was breakfast time, so Mia ran off. The woman asked if she was bothering her lord, and he replied that she wasn't because he was also curious to see the dish she had cooked. Calling her Chef Mary, the woman, now cured of the disease and dressed in a cook's outfit, said she hoped the lord would like her dish. The man asked if she was already well enough to work, and the woman replied that thanks to him, she was better. However, for some reason, Isabella was still observing our protagonist with a mischievous look, saying that as expected, he really was different. Various mana particles formed in the air, and our protagonist, who was sitting meditating with a slim body, thought that people always search for shortcuts. Expelling all the particles, he added that everyone looked for a training method to increase their mana by 2 or 3 points, but all of them were inferior, looking at the system screen and receiving the notification that he had created a new training method, asking him to enter the name. What separated the shortcut from those few was the ability to turn the shortcut into their own real path, and his training method was superior. While thinking about what name to give this method, the boy said that this would be the first of his marks in this world, so it would be nice to invent a proper name. Bug Player, the one who loves all the shortcuts used to facilitate their journey. Lying in the air, Isabella, with her tongue out, began to laugh, saying she had been spying on the secret training methods of many magicians, but the boy's method showed an interesting difference. Our protagonist asked the demon if she could see the flaw in this method, and the woman said yes, although normal people couldn't see it. She said she could also affirm that the boy was cheating because he was artificially good at attracting pure mana to his body. Coming up behind the boy and placing her hand on him, Isabella stated that he wasn't a person from this land. Jared got extremely worried hearing that, questioning what the woman was talking about, and Isabella began to laugh. The demon commented that she was just asking if the boy came from another continent because there were rumors that people from the eastern continent were good at mana manipulation. Relieved, the boy lied, saying that now that she had mentioned it, he remembered a story from his ancestors that in their time there was a myth saying something about that. The boy thought that the eastern continent was a major expansion for Paradiso that had been ambitiously worked on for 5 years, but he died before its release. Isabella took advantage of this, questioning what the boy was thinking at that exact moment. The woman said that many interesting things had happened to her when she was with the boy, so she was extremely curious about him. The demon suggested they take it slow and talk with each other a bit since he was the only one who could see her. She touched Jared's eye, looking at the ability she had granted him, but the Lord quickly responded that the mind's eye belonged to him. Blushing, Isabella said he could forget about it and keep the ability, considering it a wedding gift for her future husband. Isabella explained that at first she really didn't like the boy's fat body, but now that he had lost weight, he seemed acceptable. Astonished and shocked, Jared couldn't believe what he was hearing and asked if that was why she had been watching him sleep so much. Hugging him, Isabella said he was a great man, and since she had died without experiencing carnal acts, she would accept him as her partner. She also mentioned that he had given her his first kiss, which made the boy really uncomfortable. Jared, in a panic, said he had to go to the territory of Vernella, but the woman asked him to wait, calling him my love. After some time, Hayes was seen reading a letter from Lacus to the Lord. In the letter, Lacus wrote that Lena was extremely talented. He was impressed by this. Our protagonist said that the final date for Lena to be the strongest person in Cribio would be by the end of the month, and she must be especially talented, which confused Hayes. The Lord asked Hayes to please tell Lakis that he would soon find a teacher for Lena, and the girl readily agreed. Jared thought he remembered some candidates for the position just in time since he was looking for someone to make the girl extremely strong. But suddenly, surprising everyone, an arrow was shot, breaking the glass of the carriage and nearly hitting Hayes, who was protected by a magical shield. The Lord, who barely managed to save his subordinate, was extremely scared by all of this, wondering what was happening. All the other guards started shouting that it was an ambush and that they should protect the Lord, while Hayes tried to make sense of everything occurring in front of her. A rain of arrows began to come towards the carriage, and Jared quickly conjured a magic shield, protecting himself and his subordinate. Hayes, in a panic, called out her lord's name and tried to throw herself in front of the arrows to protect him. However, the boy got irritated and said it was dangerous, questioning what the girl would do if she died from an arrow hit. Hayes, hugging her lord, affirmed it was her duty to protect him, but Jared told her not to express her devotion by acting recklessly. The boy gave her a gentle tap on the head, asking her to stop fighting and stay there, as if she tried to leave the carriage, he would defeat her himself. The arrows kept coming, and amidst the soldiers trying to protect their lord, Jared emerged, questioning who the insects daring to shoot at them were. Despite his subordinates saying it was dangerous, Jared continued walking forward, and Isabella asked if he needed help, but the lord replied no. Conjuring a shield in front of him, all the arrows were deflected and immediately broken by the mana barrier he had invoked. Through the translucent shield, he could see the army of bandits trying to attack him. Most of them were hooded with something covering their mouths, and one of them told their leader that there was a mage with them. Their leader, Todd, the assassin and mage hunter, replied that it was expected for a mage to be with them. With his enormous axe in hand, Tog said that's why that masked brat had requested his services. Hearing this, Jared connected the dots, thinking the masked person must be the same one Lakis mentioned before and the one who hired Tog to kill him. The man quickly advanced towards the lord with an axe in one hand and a tool in the other, saying that all mages were useless. Irritated and with black eyes of fury, Tog said he would set an example for this novice while charging to attack our protagonist. Throwing his axe with his right hand, Tog aimed at Jared, who barely managed to dodge using acceleration and prepared to use the magic missile in his hand. But before our protagonist could use the spell, Tog used his other tool to hit his hand and prevent the attack, saying it was useless to do such a cheap trick. Immediately taking advantage of Jared being caught off guard, a man struck the back of the lord's neck, making him feel the blow. But it was revealed that Jared hadn't been hit as he managed to use his shield to protect himself, then remarked that the bandit's title wasn't just for show. The bandit wasn't deterred by this ability and quickly tried to strike our protagonist several times. Tog thought the boy was very quick at casting spells and must be a 4th category mage or higher, but he continued delivering blows. The man thought that Jared would counterattack if he stopped, so he wouldn't let the lord attack or defend, continuing his barrage of strikes against the shield. The guards were astonished by the fight, and the bandits convinced themselves that their master was winning, so Todd began to mock our protagonist. However, when Todd was about to land a hit, Jared quickly grabbed the man's staff, stopping him immediately. The lord realized it was a magical artifact, and the bandit wondered how that mage had stopped his attack. Our protagonist said it was just in time since he felt bad about not having any magical artifacts, declaring that he would take that one. The bandit panicked, seeing the boy use the magic of physical strength enhancement and questioning how that mage had such a constitution. Jared said he had filled Tog's entire body with magic, and before he realized it, the man was already full of green veins being dominated. The lord said that although he wanted to know about the masked man, Tog probably wouldn't tell him, yet the bandit, in despair, said he would reveal everything. Our protagonist had already taken the bandit's 2 weapons, saying he would love to hear it. However, he wouldn't trust a single word from a criminal, and with Tog's own axe, delivered a strike on the bandit.